Hi, and welcome to the Cleveland Studio for Music and Arts video series, Music of Our World. This is episode 2, and I'm Dennis Cole, and in today's episode, we're going to look at aerophones. Now, as a whole, organology is the science to studying musical instruments and classifying musical instruments. For ethnomusicologists like myself, we tend to use the Sachs Hornbostel system, a system that, when originally published, designated 4 categories for classifying all the instruments from around our world. Either chordophones, membranophones, idiophones, or aerophones. So in today's episode, we're going to look at the 4th category, the aerophones. Now, aerophones are unique and specific in that there's a column of air that when triggered, the vibration is funneled through the column to produce sound. Now, there's 3 distinct categories of aerophones. There's flutes, trumpets, and reeds. So let's start with the flutes. Flutes are designated as either horizontal flutes or vertical flutes. This is a horizontal flute referred to as the dizi. It's a traditional Chinese instrument that you find in folk music like Jiangnan Siju or in Beijing opera. It has finger holes. It typically, in some cases, would have like a sort of tissue paper covering a hole so that it's a sympathetic device that would create more of a nasal sound that would be a great accompaniment to the nasal quality of the voice that you typically hear in traditional Chinese music. You would blow across the hole and the air is split over the edge. That's the designated feature of flutes, be it vertical flutes or horizontal flutes. So this is the Western recorder that we all had the joy of playing in elementary school. What makes this instrument unique in relationship to its horizontal counterpart is that this instrument has a mouthpiece. And when the sound is produced the same way, in that when you blow through the instrument, the air is split over an edge, and that vibration is then filtered through the instrument. Now, with both of these instruments, the vertical or the horizontal and the vertical versions, as you cover up the holes, you make the tubing longer, thereby allowing the vibration to slow down and allowing the pitch to drop. As you open up the finger holes, the tubing gets shorter, the vibration gets faster, and the pitch rises. It's the same phenomenon with both of these. So, but what makes them unique is that the designated factor of the flutes is that the air is split over an edge, and the vibration is then filtered through the tubing. Next are trumpets. Now, trumpets work in the idea that you buzz your lips. You trigger the vibration with your lips, and you push that vibration then through a series of tubings. Tubing that can either be manipulated through a system of valves or rotors or keys, or pistons, as you would say, thereby allowing the tubing to get shorter or longer. Or in the case of most trumpets, you have what's referred to as a natural horn, in which the tubing is fixed. Thus, when you buzz the instrument, and I don't think I can do this properly, so I shouldn't probably demonstrate. But when you buzz your lips through the tubing, as such, you can only create one fundamental pitch. Now, I'm not sure. This instrument more than likely is from Tibet or Nepal. It looks very much like a Buddhist ritual trumpet, a Mahayana tradition in which, along with the chant in Buddhist ritual, you would have a series of trumpets or drums or cymbals. And in what we see coming out of Tibet, or in Nepal as well, that Himalayan region, you have these brass trumpets. You see these very long ones that push the sound into the mountain range, but you also have these smaller versions as well. Again, you buzz your lips, and then the tubing is fixed, so you can't really manipulate the sound. What I'm not sure about is when an instrument like this, another common form of a natural horn is the Aboriginal didgeridoo, in which you get a eucalyptus or a yellow box tree, and you hollow out, or if the termites haven't done so already, you hollow out the tree branch, you put some beeswax around the edge, and then you buzz through the tree branch. The Aborigines of Australia do that. It's a natural horn, but in that case, you can actually manipulate overtones. I don't know if this instrument's capable of manipulating overtones as well. I'm not a brass expert. I have a lot of brass instruments in my collection, but I'm not able to manipulate them as a brass musician would to be able to demonstrate them properly or to be able to understand the potential for the overtone series. Now, you have the natural horn, but what we'll find in the Western world is that you have trumpets that are capable of, through a series of pistons, in this case pistons and rotors, so this would be held as such, where two hands would be used to manipulate the instrument. This is a G to D piston rotor bugle. This would have been used by military field outlets like drum and bugle corps, either the Marines Drum and Bugle Corps, the Commandant's own, or in civilian drum corps outlets sponsored by, say, the American Legion or the VFW or the CYO or the Boy Scouts. This would have been a bugle that would have been common amongst drum and bugle corps from, say, the 1950s up through the late 70s. In the competitive circuits, this instrument would have been supplanted somewhere by as early as 1977, as late as 1979, by its two-valve counterpart, this here. This would have been an instrument that would have been, the intonation would have been much more improved, as well as the range of notes. This again is a G bugle as well. And this instrument is still used in the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps today. Now, flutes, again, just in review, flutes, the air is split over an edge. Trumpets, you have the buzzing of the lips to create the sound. The last category are reeds. Now, for most of us who are familiar with Western music, we're aware that reeds typically are manipulated by the mouth. They're lung-driven instruments, either single reed or double reed. And what we have an example here is a double reed, where you see there are two pieces of wood that are tied together over a post, that when placed in the mouth and blown through, they buzz. Now this, of course, being a reed, a beginning reed for an oboe, and this is a Western oboe here that when you place it in and you buzz through, you then create the sound, the common sound of the instrument. And again, much like what we saw with the flutes, as you cover up all the keyholes, you make the tubing longer, thus making the fundamental pitch drop. And as you uncover the keys, the tubing gets shorter and the pitch rises. Now, it doesn't have to be a double reed. If you look at clarinets, if you look at saxophones, and other common Western instruments where the reed is manipulated by the mouth, you have single reed instruments. And in very rare cases in Southeast Asia, like in Thailand, you have what's referred to as the bi, which is an instrument of court music, of classical music from Thailand, from like the bipat ensemble. And it's a quadruple reed instrument. So it's more common to this, but it actually has four pieces of wood that are tied together. It's an extremely loud instrument as well. Now, beyond reed instruments where the reed is manipulated by the mouth, you have what are referred to as free reed instruments. Now, free reed instruments can be divided up into two subcategories, either bellows-driven or lung-driven. What do we mean by bellows-driven free reed instruments? Well, take the common instrument as seen here. This is an accordion. Now, I have no idea how to play this instrument, but I can demonstrate basic sound principles by when you press down the keys here, and I have no idea the order of the keys, but when you press down the keys here, it opens up tubing to allow certain reeds to vibrate. And it's referred to as a bellows-driven aerophone, or a bellows-driven free reed aerophone, because there's a system of tubing in here that when you can hear the air being pushed through. When you open up the instrument and squeeze it, you push the air through a system of bellows, which allows the reeds to vibrate. The reeds are internally structured in the instrument and are not manipulated by the mouth. So this is a bellows-driven free reed aerophone. Other common examples of bellows-driven free reed aerophones are the Uilleann pipes from Ireland, the Irish bagpipes, often referred to as the union pipes. They sit across the lap. There's an airbag and a pump that goes underneath the arm, and you pump the air into the airbag, and then there's a system of pipes and old musket barrels that work as either a chanter and drone pipes, and then there's a regulator that as you pump the air in, it regulates the flow of air through the instrument. Another common bellows-driven aerophone or free reed aerophone is the Indian harmonium. If you're familiar with bhajan devotional music of northern India, or if you're familiar with kirtan devotional music of Sikhism, of the Sikhs, the offshoot of Hinduism, or if you're familiar with, say, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and Qawwali and devotional music of the Sufis from Pakistan, you'll know that there's a lot of antiphonal chant and some basic, now the tabla is used, and then a basic sort of bell instrument as well to establish a pulse. And then the chant is accompanied by a push organ, or a pump organ, I guess you would say, where it works very much like the accordion that I just showed you, where instead of squeezing it this way, it sits on the floor and you pump the air in accordingly, and it has a keyboard. That's a harmonium. It's seen throughout India, or ancient India, and all of South Asia as well as a whole. So bellows-driven free reed aerophones. The counterpart to that are lung-driven free reed aerophones. A common version of that is the Scottish bagpipe, where you have a blowpipe, an airbag, a chanter, and a chanter is nothing more than, say, a tubing that has the holes that where you can then manipulate melodically the range of pitches, as opposed to, say, a drone pipe, where much like the natural horn, a drone pipe, a drone pipe, you can't manipulate the change of pitch. It's just a constant pitch. So a Scottish bagpipe is a great example of a lung-driven free reed aerophone. Another one would be what's referred to as a mouth organ. This is upside down, is what's referred to in China as the hulusa. The hulusa it's the gourd, the hulu, and then you've got the bamboo pipe. Now this bamboo pipe has, much like what we'd see with a bagpipe, a chanter pipe where you would actually be able to manipulate the pitches, and then it has two drone pipes. This is not really in playable order, but I can at least produce a sound with it, I think. Let's try. You can hear two distinct pitches. In that case, the drone, but you can actually change the pitch slightly. This, I think this instrument is in need of some repair. Probably there's maybe some reeds are damaged, or maybe even removed. But nonetheless, this is a common free reed, lung-driven free reed. It's called a mouth organ around the world. That's kind of the generic term for it. But it's the hulusa. And this is one of two that we see from China. The other one's called the sheng. And it actually looks opposite of this, in which it actually has probably 15 to 20, maybe 25 different tubes. And then it's played accordingly like this. It's very similar to, say, the Thai can, where there's no gourd in the Thai can. It's just a system of bamboo pipes. But the method in which it's played, in which the pipes go upward, like the bagpipes of Scotland. So again, the hulusa, the Japanese version of the Chinese sheng, is called the shou. It's another similar free reed mouth organ, and it's an instrument that's used in gagaku, imperial court music of Japan. Free reed mouth organ. Now, something that's similar to this in the Western world is the harmonica. The difference between these two instruments, though, if we demonstrate again on the hulusa, in this case, and it's probably because it's a bit damaged, but regardless, if I inhale or exhale through the instrument, I still get the same range of the same distinct pitches coming out. Nothing changes. So we designate that as a single action, lung-driven free reed aerophone. Single action in that there's just, regardless of the flow of air, if it's inward or outward, you get a single action reed, as opposed to the harmonica, and I'm not a harmonica player, but as you breathe in and out through the instrument, it's a double action, in that the action of inhaling versus exhaling triggers a different set of reeds to vibrate. So it's lung-driven, free reed aerophone, much like we saw with the indigenous or the traditional mouth organ from China. But then we have a more industrialized version of it here with the harmonica, and it actually has a pivot point where the flow of air triggers a double action in the reed, causing different reeds to vibrate, and thus changing the ability to manipulate the pitch. All right, so there are our reed instruments. Again, flutes, horizontal versus vertical, trumpets, in which you have either natural horns where it's a fixed pitch, or you have a system of keys or pistons and rotors to manipulate the length of tubing. And lastly, are reeds, either reeds that go in the mouth or free reed instruments, reeds that are manipulated by a system of bellows, or reeds that are manipulated by the lungs. But in all of these instruments, the common feature is the column of air. Thus, they're all categorized in the Sachs Hornbostel system as aerophones. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like and subscribe to our page. Let us know if there are other topics that you'd like for us to discuss, from other categories of the Sachs Hornbostel system to other styles of music, to classical composers, to pop styles. Let us know. We'd be happy to expand your knowledge of music from our worlds. Thanks, and see you next time.